James here from goodguitarist.com, and today I'm doing something brand new, answering your guitar questions. People from all over the world sent in their questions, and I've picked my top 5. We're going to talk about picking, rhythm, counting, finger independence, and how to make tricky chords sound cleaner. So let's get into it.
Hi James, Mark here from Brisbane. Really like your channel. Just got a question about picking styles. I normally don't do alternate picking just because I haven't taught myself it. So if I'm strumming and picking something, I might do something like this. And I'm just wondering if you think it's necessary or a really good idea to do alternate picking, and if it is a good idea, what exercises I could start doing to get that into muscle memory. Thanks.
That is a great question, Mark. And the short answer is, it depends. What you're already doing is great, and if it works for you, then I wouldn't really change anything. You know, that's kind of feels unnatural to me though, because I would rather alternate pick it. And chances are you're asking this question because maybe you're hitting some kind of roadblock and alternate picking could be the answer. So let's just go quickly over how I would incorporate that into my playing. I would start off by equating it to strumming. It's really no different except on a single string. So you have your strumming pattern and then you just do it on one string. And from there, we would want to kind of mix it into the strumming. So I would start off by strumming on beat 1 with my pattern, and then I would play just on a single string the rest of the pattern. Down, down, up, down, up. So I'm doing the same strumming pattern, but I'm only fully strumming on beat 1. The rest of it's happening on one string. And by the way, the eternal rule of strumming that I may not have mentioned, we go down on the numbers, up on the ands. Count nice and slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and eventually you change strings just like that. And that's what I would do to start working into alternate picking while strumming. And I know I'm just kind of blasting through it here, but I do go through this step by step in another lesson. I'll put a link in the corner and down below for that. And that way you can work on this at your own pace. And by the way, this is our first time ever doing an AMA, but I would love to do it again. So if you'd like me to answer your guitar question in the next one, head over to ama.goodguitarist.com or click the link down below. And if you're catching this later and the submissions are already full, don't worry. You can hop on the wait list and that way you'll be the first in line for the next round. Now, on to our next question, which is from Elise.
Hey, James. I've got a good grasp of rhythm guitar, but I was wondering what are some little flourishes or things I can do while I'm playing rhythm that will make it more interesting. Thanks.
Totally. Love this question because, rhythm guitar really can feel repetitive, especially if you're just strumming the same pattern over and over. And it's not necessarily about what you're adding. It could be a walking bass line, or some kind of riff like what really matters is that you don't lose the strumming even when you're playing that riff, and you can just hop right back onto it. And I have a really simple way to practice it that I'll just outline here. Step 1 is to be really good at your riff. So let's just say we're gonna go, that's pretty straightforward. I'll put some tab up above if you want to work on this yourself. And then we're going to take a look at our strumming. Let's say we're strumming 2 measures of the A chord with down, root, down, down, up. We figure out where to plug in that lick. I'm going to start it on beat 1 of the second measure. And that's how it fits together. We have 1 measure of strumming, and that's our entire fill. And at this point, we practice it and work it out. And I know that your goal might be to just improvise these things, but that's where you start, is by setting aside that space and inserting the lick, and then you can insert a different lick and a different one. And after a while, you are kind of just on the fly picking You are kind of just picking something that you've already practiced a whole bunch, but, you know, just picking it on the fly. And that's kind of what improvisation is. It's like John Schofield says, you know.
Improvisation is really just sort of speeded up composition and putting together things you already know.
And if you want help working on that, I taught Don't Look Back in Anger, an intermediate version that has a bunch of licks inserted into it. And I also have a couple walking bass line videos, so that way you kind of cover the licks and the bottom end, and that's going to add a lot of cool stuff to your strumming. Now on to our next question.
Hello, James. Joe here from Canada.
Fellow Canadian.
I was just wondering about counting. Like, always been told to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 as the song is going on. And I was wondering, why would I have to do that if I already know when the chord changes are going to come? So that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Hey, Joe. Thanks for sending in your question. You know, I hear this one a lot, and the reason we count isn't only to know when the chord changes happen. It's because music is built on timing, and you need to have that timing going on automatically. At first, we just say it over and over again, and after a while, it moves from, you know, our mouth actually saying it to something that just ticks along in the back of your head. And if you're already predicting the chord changes and you already know exactly when they're going to happen, chances are you already have this going on. But then let's say you go to learn something a little trickier, you know, maybe something with a difficult rhythm. Well, you're going to have to start counting again. You know, counting is that thing that helps us take rhythms and learn them, take things that are too hard for us and simplify them, because it puts it all on a grid. So, you know, it's always worth practicing, even 5 minutes a day of rhythm exercises like clapping, counting, that can transform your playing. Now on to our next question.
Hi, James. This is Matt. Enjoying your courses so far.
Thank you.
Just a beginner. Nothing wrong with the video. I play left-handed. But the problem I'm experiencing is, you know, I'm practicing finger independence. And
that's good.
For some reason, naturally, my ring finger and pinky kind of want to lay to the side here, which is obviously giving me problems fretting in the appropriate place. So I'm just wondering if there's some kind of exercise or something where I can kind of stretch these fingers out to get them to lay more like this as opposed to naturally how they want to lay like this. So appreciate the response. Thanks for doing this. Look forward to hearing from you.
Matt, thanks for sharing that. What you're experiencing is really common. You know, the ring and pinky finger, they love to stick together. You know, there's actually a tendon, I believe, that connects the middle and ring. So the ring doesn't have full independence and your pinky's just smaller than the rest of your fingers, you know. So it is worth it to focus on them with some exercises. I have a low impact one where you lay out all your fingers on a single string and then you just move your index finger up to the next string, move it back, and then move it down. We're not even playing anything. We're just moving our fingers along. And this really helps with the independence. You know, just doing that with every finger. And you can move them 2 strings over, you know, and just build up on the exercise over and over again. Another really good one. A lot of people do this and they just work on every finger all the way up. But I like to start at the top with all your fingers down and focus on removing them, but just a little bit. If you let your finger wing way out, you're not going to develop that control. You know, you pick, you just lift it a little bit, lift it a little bit. And I teach both of these completely in separate lessons. I'll put links to those if you want to work on these. And I'd love to hear your progress, how it's going. If you run into any other problems, you can always reach out to me here in the comments, or you're part of the All Access Pass. That's where I found your question. So you can always just reach out in the Ask James part of the All Access Pass and I'll answer your question directly. Does that count as a shameless plug? You know, I wasn't trying to plug my membership, but you know, he is a member of it and it's a great way to get through everything on guitar, right? You know, all the courses, all the worksheets, being able to ask me questions directly. So if you are interested, I'll put a link down below for that as well. But either way, on to our next question.
Hi James, it's Paul from the UK. I'm trying to learn to play Until I Found You by Stephen Sanchez with the capo on fret 10. The intro contains 4 types of F chords, but I cannot get the notes from the first finger to sound clearly. This is partly because of the lack of space at that part of the fretboard, and also
that's way
trying to curve my fingers sufficiently without muting any of the strings.
So, Paul, it sounds like you're already doing a lot of the right things. You know, you're focusing on how your fingers are curving and getting the right positioning and all that. I'm just going to quickly look up the song because I don't know it. All right, so I have it here. I don't know if I can show the tab here, but I'll just read through it real quick. I know what you mean. That isn't the easiest passage of music. The biggest tip that I have for you, aside from all that positioning stuff, is to just try it without the capo first and just get a hold of the whole thing and be able to play it smoothly that way when you have lots of space. Maybe down here is a little too low. Maybe we can just lower the capo to like the 5th fret. And that's the first place I would start. And then from there, I would take a look at my index finger barring, because reading that chord shape, I could try it that way. But for me, it feels a lot easier to just have my finger in that bar position, the same way as when I'm playing any other bar chord. And then when I go to the second chord, it can stay there. It keeps things a little bit smoother for me. Finally, just double checking that all of that technique stuff is there. You're pulling your elbow in order to bring your hand more like this. Your thumb's in a good spot. You know, and getting it to sound really good at like the 5th fret, and then you move up to the 6th fret and the 7th and so on. And by the time you get to the 10th fret, something you'll realize, let's say we put the capo in the perfect spot, right where it's supposed to be. There's not enough room for my finger to bar. So what I tend to do once the frets get really small, if I'm capoing really high, is I angle it like that. You still want to make sure that every string is ringing out, but this way there's room for my finger to kind of naturally fix. My finger doesn't fit straight up. It kind of goes at a little bit of an angle. And that way the capo is just kind of budging out of the way so that I'm not crashing into it with my knuckles. And that's all 5 questions for today. Huge thanks to Mark, Elise, Joe, Matt, and Paul for their great questions. I would love to do more of these. So if you want me to answer your guitar question in the next one, head over to ama.goodguitarist.com or click the link below. If it's full, you can always hop on the wait list, and that way you'll be the first to know when submissions reopen. Thanks for watching. Have a fun time practicing, and I'll see you soon.